Did you know there was once a beer so famous it became the face of British drinking culture, and yet today it's gone? Britain's pubs were filled with iconic brews that shaped nights out, family gatherings, and football matches. Some were smooth, some strong, some controversial, but all of them were woven into the fabric of everyday life. One by one, though, they vanished, victims of changing tastes, brewery closures, and the slow march of modern drinking culture. In this video, we'll look back at the classic beers that defined a generation and why they disappeared. 1. Watney's Red Barrel. There was a time you couldn't walk into a pub without seeing the bright red pump of Watney's Red Barrel. First brewed in the 1930s, it became the poster child of keg beer in the 60s and 70s. Pasteurized and consistent, it traveled far and wide, from working men's clubs to holiday resorts at the seaside. Its taste? Smooth, malty, safe, comfort in a pint glass. For many, it was the pint their dad drank, or the one you'd see lined up on the bar before a dance hall night. But in 1971, the campaign for real ale was founded largely in protest against beers like this. Drinkers wanted character, not convenience. By the late 70s, Red Barrel was gone. Yet even now, that red logo still conjures smoky pubs, sticky carpets, and the hum of jukeboxes in a Britain that feels long, vanished. 2. Double Diamond. A double diamond works wonders. If you watched TV in the 60s or 70s, you'll remember that jingle. Brewed in Burton-upon-Trent, Double Diamond was a pale ale with a light amber body, smooth taste, and just enough sweetness to feel sophisticated. It was marketed as the pint for the modern man, cosmopolitan, confident, and stylish. But of course, in reality, it was just as likely to be found in a working men's club as in a swanky bar. It wasn't flashy, but it was reliable. And when its adverts blared from the television, it became a national presence. By the 1980s, however, lager fever took over and stronger, more characterful beers left Double Diamond behind. Still, just the sound of that slogan brings back memories of dartboards, jukeboxes, and the thrill of payday pints. 3. Stone's Bitter. In Sheffield, Stone's Bitter wasn't just a drink, it was identity. First brewed in 1948 at the Cannon Brewery, it was the pint of miners, steelworkers, and everyday blokes who'd earned their round. Golden, slightly dry, endlessly drinkable. By the 1980s, it was one of Britain's best-selling bitters. But when production moved away from Sheffield, the taste shifted, and locals never forgave it. By 2011, the original cask version was discontinued. For Sheffield, losing Stones wasn't only about a beer, it was about losing part of the city's soul. 4th Whitbread Pale Ale. Not glamorous, not bold, but dependable. Whitbread Pale Ale was the quiet pint, the bottle in your dad's shed, the beer you'd share with neighbors after mowing the lawn, the drink poured at weddings and Sunday lunches. Golden, crisp, light on bitterness, a true session beer before the term even existed. It was background music, not the headline act. But as drinking culture shifted in the 1980s, subtle beers like Whitbread seemed old-fashioned. People wanted stronger lagers or craftier ales, and Whitbread Pale Ale slipped quietly off the shelves. For those who remember it though, its simplicity is exactly what made it special. 5. King & Barnes Old Ale. Down in Horsham, Sussex, King & Barnes brewed a legendary old ale that locals adored. Deep chestnut with roasted notes and just enough sweetness, it was the kind of pint you lingered over by the fire. It paired perfectly with pork pies, Sunday roasts, or quiet chats after a walk across the downs. King & Barnes wasn't a huge national brewery, but for locals, it was home in a glass. When the brewery was sold in 2000 and closed, the loss was felt like a bereavement. People still speak of that old ale with pride and sadness, proof that sometimes a beer is more than a drink. it's a piece of community. Number 6. Base. If you know your beer history, you'll know Bass. That red triangle was the world's very first registered trademark in 1876, and for over a century, Bass was a giant. Brewed in Burton-upon-Trent, it was exported worldwide, and for decades, ordering a Bass felt like ordering quality. In Britain, it was everywhere, from pub signs to football terraces, but through mergers and changes, Bass lost its identity. Today, the name exists in different forms, but the iconic Bass pint that once ruled the taps has become a shadow of itself. Yet the sight of that red triangle still stirs something deep: heritage, pride, and a reminder of when British beer led the world. 7th, Ind Cooper Long Life. This one was different. Ind Coope's Long Life wasn't just any beer, it was Britain's first canned beer, launched in the 1950s and still popular into the 70s. Pale, fizzy, and designed to last on the shelf, it was a favorite for football fans, picnics, and caravans. Advertised with the promise of freshness, wherever you go, it felt futuristic. By the 80s, though, canned lager from big names stole its thunder, and Long Life faded away. But for anyone who remembers cracking open a tin at the seaside or before a match, it's part of the soundtrack of a changing Britain. 8. Courage Imperial Russian Stout. Not all lost beers were light and easy. Courage Imperial Russian Stout was a powerhouse. Dark, strong, and originally brewed for export to the Russian court in the 18th century. By the mid-20th century, it was still being bottled in Britain, warming drinkers through winters with its bold, roasted flavor. It wasn't an everyday pint, but it was legendary. By the 1990s, production stopped, and it became the stuff of collectors and memories. For many, it symbolizes a lost tradition of British brewing, strong, ambitious, and world-class. 9. Younger's Number. In Scotland, Younger's Number 3 was the strong ale of choice for generations. Deep, malty, and robust, it had a loyal following well into the 20th century. It was the kind of pint you'd sip slowly on a cold evening, a beer with real weight behind it. But like so many regional favorites, it didn't survive the tide of consolidation and shifting tastes. Quietly retired, it now lives only in memory, a symbol of the rich diversity of regional brewing that once thrived across Britain. From Watney's Red Barrel to Younger's Number 3, these pints weren't just drinks, they were chapters in Britain's story. They remind us of smoky pubs, of paydays, of seaside holidays, of community, and of change. Every pint carried a piece of culture, and losing them feels like losing a fragment of who we were. Which of these do you remember, and which one would you bring back if you could? Share your stories in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for another trip down memory lane. Cheers!